Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So this is Rosalind Wiseman, and I will introduce myself first. So my name is Nicole Casanova, and this is the Masters of the Art of Leverage interview series, where we're speaking to amazing people who have transformed their lives, often by the relationships that catapulted them to this next level or changed the trajectory of their business. And so, Rosalind, I want to talk all about how amazing you are. And I will give you some sound bites, and I know how much fun I know you love to talk about yourself, so I'll tee you up on that.
A lot,
So first, you might know a little bit about Rosalind's work. So you have had a series of successful books, and you focus on you're a parent educator, you speak all around the country, probably have affected and impacted more kids than we know. And the place that probably most of us know about you is the one book that you wrote called Queen Bees and Wannabes, which was the inspiration for the book Mean Girls, or the movie Mean Girls. And since then you've had some other books. It looks like you have like 6 or 7. You focus on the parents. So I have to just look at the names of these because they're so freaking amazing. So Queen Bee Moms and Kingpin Dads, dealing with parents, teachers, coaches, and counselors who make or break your child's future. And then more recently, the last one is Masterminds Wingmen, helping our boys cope with schoolyard power, locker room tests, girlfriends, and the new rules of boy world. So I'm going to have us talk all sorts about leverage and all these pieces, but tell us about yourself. Give us maybe 2, 3 sound bites, and then I want us to go into, of course, the story of how we catapulted you to success, like that one thing, and we know what it was. So
what are like the couple of things about me that like sound bites about me?
Yeah, well, so give us a little bit of, I want you to rave. Give us 2 or 3 amazing things, and then I'm going to go back into your history a bit and find out how you got to the place where this book was picked up.
Sure. I'm really good at being able to work with teenagers and to be able to get them to help me on the different projects that I think are interesting. And I don't, I think I'm smart. I think I'm good at what I do. I think I'm good at listening and being able to be self-reflective about what I've done and how I've made mistakes and then moving forward. I think that what I'm good at is that the issues that I work on, I take incredibly seriously. And I've never lost the importance of what I do is really important. But I also, at the same time, laugh constantly about how ridiculous the situations that I find myself in or that kids tell me about. Sometimes those things can be really sad and horrible, and I can not laugh at them, but I'll, oftentimes will sit with kids and say, that is the most ridiculously stupid, horrible experience I've ever heard. That's ridiculous. And now I'm like going to laugh about it because it's so ridiculous that like, what can you do?
Which probably helps them in so many ways.
Yeah, I think that what I do, I know I do, is that I don't think that wisdom is in any way connected to how old you are. Mm-hmm. I don't think that people, that adults are not impulsive and children and teens are. I don't think that adults are, for the most part, any more intelligent than young people are. So I think that must come across. I truly, truly believe that. And I think that the sort of hypocrisy and the double standards and the lack of self-reflection that a lot of adults are unwilling to do, that's always something that I've seen. And it's not that I disrespect adults. It's not like I just have this sort of blanket thing of like, I don't like adults. That's not the case. It's just that I don't buy the whole thing of adults being mature and being in control of themselves and, sort of being the bastion of wisdom that we should, always, that young people should look at. And I think that young people, I think they see that in me, that I listen to what they're going through. I respect what they're going through. And I don't necessarily think that adults have all the answers. And I'm pretty open and honest about the ridiculous hypocrisy that adults can, so easily will say things and get after kids about things that they are completely unwilling to do themselves.
An example of one.
Oh, hypocrisy? Oh, yeah. Sure. So adults, so that like one of the most obvious hypocrisy, sort of hypocrisies of this is that adults will say, if you are being bullied, then you really should tell an adult and you really should do something about it. But adults don't do anything about it most of the time, yet they're telling kids all the time that they should report it. That's a huge hypocrisy. The other part that I was just thinking about this weekend actually is I've decided I need to go on a campaign to stop mothers from saying to their sons, or to children, but to their sons and daughters, that if someone hits you, that means that they like you. I have heard that so many. I remember that from when I was growing up. I remember it, from just being a parenting expert kind of person. But I have a teenage son and I have a pre-teenage son. And I've just been so amazed at these mothers who, when there's like an actual altercation between a boy and a girl, that the assessment on the mother's point is that one of them likes the other. And that's what I mean by sometimes adults have no clue the way that they're coming across. So first of all, that could be completely untrue. It's possible that some teenagers, it's like you tease or you whatever, but to actually equate to a child, oh yeah, when someone likes you, they hit you. It's just so unbelievable.
Absolutely. So, all right. So I definitely want to get into this messaging piece because you absolutely understand what's driving these kids. And because of that, they're so open and receptive to you. Before we do that, I want to go back to, I want a little soundbite of what your life was like prior to the Queen Bees and Wannabes being picked up. And I want to understand how that happened. Like, was there a relationship? Was there someone in particular? How did you connect with them? Was there some that kind of story?
Sure. Before Queen Bees came out, I was at 23. I couldn't find a job, and I was looking for a job in working with refugees. And I was living in DC, and I couldn't find one, and it was really stressing me out. And I had just gotten my first degree black belt, and I guess I was 22, 23, and I started teaching self-defense to girls. But what was really important to me, I don't know why I did this, but I remember it. I have a very clear memory of it, of deciding that I needed to do it for all different kinds of girls, not just the girls that could afford it, the classes. And so from there, I just started this nonprofit that would teach girls self-defense. And then I'm like 23, 24. And then someone asks me, a major publisher asks me, like somebody goes to lunch with somebody in Washington and in DC and says, hey, we're looking for a young woman, to write this book that we wrote like 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Can she, do you know somebody? And the woman said, yes, actually, I think I do. And that was me. And I think one of the things that I've benefited from is that when somebody asks me to do something, but I haven't done it, I usually have the attitude of like, yeah, sure, probably I can do it. And so I usually take those opportunities. So I did. Like I'd never written, I had no desire to be a published author, nothing. And this fell into my lap. So I did it. It didn't sell very well. It sold like 6,000 or 10,000 copies. I'm not really sure. And it was the first time also in my experience as a young person of being professionally completely discounted because I was young and because I had no like clout, but I was actually really much more smart, much more intelligent because I knew the demographic much better than the publisher did, which a lot of authors do. But that was the first and only time. That's not true. That was the biggest time that I've not been listened to by a publisher. And so it was all like, angry 90s feminism kind of stuff. And that's just like not the way that it works. Like I was not interested in that. I'm absolutely a feminist, but I'm not interested in being like, I want to be a badass, but I want to be a badass in ways that there's a time and a place for it. Say it that way.
So you're just willing to just say, of course I did this. Of course.
Right. So let's see, that book came out. I'm still struggling. I ran this nonprofit for, 8 years. It was incredibly difficult. The sexism within the foundation world, and most of those foundations are run by women, of not giving me money. I would have to work literally 10 times as hard for a tenth of the money that my male colleagues that were executive directors in local nonprofits, education, that kind of stuff. were getting. Like I would get $10,000 grant for 1 year. They would get $50,000 grants for 3 years. I mean, it was just the sexism within the foundation world was so difficult. And so I went into debt. It was really difficult. I was doing it with my husband at the time, and it was just really difficult time. It was also great. I mean, it was also amazing because we were doing more work on $100,000 budget than a lot. I mean, we just were doing a lot of work. We were doing a lot of really, really good work. And then I expanded it to do all different kinds of programs that were beyond self-defense. And then I started thinking about writing this book for girls. And I just had it in my head of like, I want to write this book for girls. I know I can write a book. I've written a book before. I guess I can write a book again. And I went to a wedding, and I was introduced to my literary agent. And then my life changed. I mean, my literary agent truly changed my life. And he's an incredibly important person in my life to this day.
So tell me, so you're sitting there and you're at the reception. Yes. And you pitch him on this idea. You say, I've been thinking about this.
I didn't pitch him.
Maybe it wasn't a pitch. Maybe the story about this.
Yeah, the story is that, and I don't really like, and I'm not being, facetious about this. I don't love talking about this with authors or people who want to publish with major publishing houses, because it's sort of like winning the lottery. I mean, I deserve my work. I'm good at my job. I'm a good writer. I follow through on deadlines. There's lots of reasons why I'm a successful writer, but there's a lot of really smart people who have a really hard time publishing. So so the story is that, I'm at this wedding, and a friend of my parents said, you have to meet this guy. And I said, okay. And he dragged me over to my agent, Jim Levine. And the guy, his name is Steve, said, you need to know Rosalind. And he's a very introverted guy, this Steve person. I don't know why he did this. He swears he actually didn't do it, but he did it. And we talked, Jim and I talked for a few minutes. I took his card. I kept his card on my dresser for months. Didn't call him. The only thing that I knew was that I was thinking that I wanted to write a book about girls, because it was sort of astounding to me that people were not understanding the connection between girls' relationships and their sense of self. And I knew that, and I knew the title. I always knew the title. The title was always going to be Queen Bees and Wannabes. And that's all. And so then I called him eventually. I mean, I think it was 6 months later, and said, can I meet with you? And I met with him, and he said, well, let's put together a proposal. And he helped me with the proposal tremendously. And his firm is a lot bigger now. And I don't know if he would be able to do that today. But yeah, so we worked on the proposal. I submitted the proposal, and see, again, like, this is not what happens, but within a couple of days after submission of the proposal, I had what's called a preemptive bid auction.
Excellent.
Right. So I had so much interest from rival publishing houses that it came down to 2 publishing houses, and I had to choose between the 2.
I love it. And I understand, you want to acknowledge that these things don't just happen. And of course, there are a million people that are incredible writers, and they don't get those breaks.
Right.
And a lot of the conversations that, the reason partly why we're having these conversations is because it really is the power of the network, and that there's a whole other wealth in relationships and the people. And I'm constantly having conversations with people that somehow they met this investor, somehow, like, things just transpired. And it's often because this person said, you need to meet this other person. And that's it. There's just an instant level of trust that without that wouldn't have transpired.
Yeah,
so,
but there was also a lot of those kinds of meetings where they never went anywhere. I mean, that's for sure, right? Or like, I've had those meetings where I ran into somebody who was actually a disaster. So like, it sort of balances out. But the relationship that Jim and I have, I mean, he's sort of, like a dad to me, that he, and I also think, I think so. I mean, if he was here, I've never asked him this, but he was at the place where his company was doing okay. They'd just gotten The Onion. They'd been published, all of right. So they were doing pretty well, but my book and The Onion and a couple of other things, like, really put them on the map.
Excellent.
So, yeah, so they publish, I mean, they do extremely well now. I mean, they're a very force to be reckoned with literary agency.
So how did this now transpire into the movie deal?
Into what?
The movie piece. So was there a relationship that happened there? And
no, about 6 months.
Thank you so much for giving the story, and whenever you're.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. About the reason I sighed is because
You're over it.
It's a pro and a con, right?
Oh.
So 6 months into the publication, before Queen Bees was published, I was approached by a journalist named Margaret Talbot, who wanted to write a book or an article for the New York Times Magazine about Mean Girls. And I knew she was from DC, and I knew that this was the chance of a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that. Mm-hmm. And so I let her in. And I was already pretty savvy. I was getting more savvy about stuff with the media, but I let her in, and I let her in too much. And everybody who's going to work with the media is probably going to have one experience that you really regret or you wish you had handled differently. And my experience with Margaret is, to my dying day, will be, I will never probably ever get to a place of peace about how that experience went down. So on one hand, it was absolutely the reason that Mean Girls, the movie, came to be, because Tina Fey read the article. She needed to write a movie script. She was under contract. She had to write one. And she didn't even know what it was going to be about. And she read the article and she said, I want to buy the rights to this book. And literally 18 months later, I was sitting at the premiere of Mean Girls. But the experience with Margaret was less than positive, and it was very hurtful, and it inadvertently hurt other people. And there was nothing that I could do to stop it. And there are people to this day who believe things that aren't true, that who were hurt by it, and there literally was nothing I could do about it. And it was it was literally like you sign your soul to the devil and you get rewarded, right? I mean, it was that much of a moment. And I was caught. And, I really remember, like, it was, of course it was a great learning lesson and all that stuff. But I absolutely wish that it did not happen that way it went down. Absolutely.
So let me ask you a little bit more about, I want to ask you about the experience with working with Tina and all these kind of pieces. I think what must have been incredibly satisfying is to see the pieces that actually came from the kids directly, and seeing that transpire in a movie.
Yeah. That was cool.
So amazing, right?
Yeah, that was cool.
And the other piece is that you're incredibly funny as well. So we can give her all the credit, but every time I see you, you're just like incredibly. I
laugh a lot.
You are laughing nonstop.
I do. I laugh a lot. But I'm also extremely jaded and nasty at the same time. So
that's how you can write a book about Mean Girls. Absolutely.
Right, exactly. I mean, I try and keep that on the down low, or try and keep that private, so it's just that, like, I can be very
anyway, so you have this experience. It helps you get to this next level. Let me go into, I'm always interested in the relationship piece, but let's go into the reason why this ever became what it was, is because the ability that you have to connect with this younger audience. So I want to talk a little bit about the messaging there, and how you're able to create this level of intimacy, and how does your messaging shift between working with boys and working with girls? So
what was the first question again?
First question was, how do you actually create this level of intimacy? And what is it that you're doing in your messaging that resonates with them and they receive it well enough to give you
I think it's as simple as I say to them, this is what I think. I've been working with people your age for a long time, but I really could be wrong because I don't know you.
Okay.
And so if I'm wrong, tell me, and don't hold back. And for some kids, it takes them a while to believe me about that. Some kids will just, say that. I can also be with a teenager who's angry. Like, I can have a kid walk in who thinks that she hates me, or is really angry at the world, and I'm interested in what's going on with them. And I think that there's probably a really good reason for them to be angry. What I have a much harder time with is girls, and these girls usually love mean girls, by the way. I have much harder time with girls who are either coming across as stupid or are just acting in inane ways. I mean, that's it's harder for me, because I want girls to be able to be funny, and I want them to be able to be smart and to be able to, be politically powerful, whatever that means to them in their world. And I want them to mess stuff up. Like, I want them to cause trouble. And so when I see a girl who is completely co-opted and not like making trouble, or making stupid kinds of trouble, like, backstabbing about some girls being slutty or that kind of stupid stuff, I get really like bummed out, right? Because I'm like, you should be better. It's not like you should be better than this, like a better person. That's not what I mean. I do not mean like you should be a better person. I mean that you should be more interesting, right? Like, and so, I mean, I just, so I truly feel that it's easy as saying, I've been working with people for your age for a long time, but I might be wrong. So tell me if I'm wrong and tell me why. And I pretty much think that a lot of stuff, I'm not easily offended. I'm really not. And if I am, I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to get like all self-righteous on you about that.
So the piece is that you're giving them the ability to basically tell you that you are wrong, and that there's this level where they can actually show up and recognize that all you care about is them and their story. So that whole like interest in who they are, and this is like one of the biggest things that I speak with companies that are wanting to create partnerships, is you have to get into their head. It's all about what's in it for me. And I can imagine that the reason you might be resistant to the girls that are not showing up that way is that they've almost, in many ways, given up their self-expression. That they're not. That's why it's frustrating. You don't have something to step into because they've already completely shut down.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the guys that I work with. It's just, it's a different level of reactivity, which I'm totally aware of. With girls, I'm like, you're disappointing me, which is totally ridiculous that I feel this way. And the boys that are like that, it's like, your problem, right? I mean, there's not many boys that are like that, but the boys that are can really wreak havoc on other people, and of course themselves as well. But I've dealt with a lot of hazing, sexual assault, hate crime, crappy bullshit behavior, where also the other boys are sitting there and not doing anything about it. I mean, I've done so much work on this. So I know, I've been in the trenches with kids about this. And so I know what some kids are capable of. And, it's really, so I can get reactive about that, but I also can sit with them and say like, well, we're going to talk about this. I'm not shying away from the fact that your best friend, excuse my language, but like your best friend, like sexually assaulted or sodomized, like a kid in the locker room shower last week. Like, we are talking about this. Like, we're going to talk about it, because if you were man enough to sit there and not do anything about it, then you're man enough to sit and talk to me about it. I just will not leave those conversations.
You tell it like it is, and I'm sure that they respect you for that. Let me ask you this. So
they get mad.
or they get mad. Let me ask you this part. So the conversation that I have with all these other people is around leverage, and how do you create the relationship that's going to, take you to this next place for kids. What kind of experience, like what can they create that's leverage in their own community, or in their own, like if somebody's coming against, like how do I mean, you don't want to befriend the sweetest girl that's going to be the most popular just because it's going to get you in the next place. But there's a dynamic there in terms of like, what could you be leveraging in a high school environment, or what's going to keep you?
Actually, what I think leverages you is, so adults, when young people want something, if they don't feel listened to, they can get frustrated. And then when they get frustrated, they can act in ways that are actually what the adult is expecting. Like, with kids and parents, or kids with an administrator, of like crying or lying or whatever. And I think one of the most powerful things that young people can do is to not do these sort of traditional, stereotypical, immature things that adults sometimes bank on for the kid to do, so they can dismiss the child's opinion. So, you have a principal who, or you're like, say to this way, a girl comes in and she's really upset about something that's going on, like bullying or whatever. And she gets in there and she just starts to cry, or she starts to get like really upset, but she won't, like, she's not making a lot of sense. Then that kind of thing actually, for not all administrators, but some administrators who don't want to deal with the problem in substantive ways will say like, oh, well, she's really upset. You know, she's like crying and she's out of control, so I don't have to deal with this. Like she's acting like what I typically think, so then I don't have to deal with it. And parents can sometimes do that too. And so I've talked to young people about, you've got to hold it together. Like, you've got to be able to come in and advocate for yourself in effective ways. Because if you don't, then you're falling into the exact thing that they want, that like an adult who doesn't want to give you what you want, you are falling right into the image and the idea that they have of you. So you've got to be able to manage yourself, know how to handle conflict, be able to strategize what the possible obstacles are that they would say no. What is your response to that? You can get upset, no problem, absolutely, you can, but you got to manage yourself, and you have to be able to confidently think through these difficult problems. When you do that, you have a lot more control. I think that that's when I think of leveraging in high school, that's what I think of. And I also think that very much translates into peers who have a lot more power than you do.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because one of the other conversations I had, when it came down to it, what she said, the biggest component of leverage is being able to identify and know yourself. Like, you can have all these other pieces out there that you think you can leverage, but the reality is, like, can you keep yourself focused and internal? And what I'm hearing you say is that bias can happen not just from friends, but it can happen in administrators. So if you are able to really be strategic, but hold yourself together and, you know,
totally,
you're not expecting.
Yeah, I'll give you another one actually that I was working on a lot, that I work on a lot, which is, so the young Black men that I work with in high school, some of them will mumble. Some of them, for a lot of different, very understandable reasons, they will come across as not as smart as they truly are. And so one of the ways they do that is they'll sit and they'll slouch and they'll mumble. So you're constantly saying like, what are you saying? What are you saying? And then they're like, oh, what? Never mind. They're on the right. Okay. So and then you're talking about like, so I'm obviously straight, middle-aged woman, white. And I'm saying to these guys, look, you need to be taken seriously. And the world is actually predisposed to not take you seriously because you're teen, because you're African-American, because of how you have responded to that. And which is, I get it. Like, I get that. I can understand why when you sit into a room and you're talking to me that you mumble. But when you do that, you're reinforcing the stereotype. You don't have something interesting to say. So it's really important.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Challenge that.
Oh no. Rosalind, speak again. I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, I lost you.
Okay.
Oh, now you're back. Okay. Great.
So you want me to repeat what I said?
Well, no, the last part that kind of cut out was, you know, you were telling them all these different things are already against you. And so to show up as.
Right. So to show up, so if you're a young Black man and, some, not all, but some administrators will much more easily define young Black men as being defiant, right? Being disrespectful. Well, some of that is about racism and about the adult not being even aware maybe of the fact that they're being racist. And so it's really important that when a young Black man is having a meeting, gets thrown out of class, right, by a teacher who doesn't like him or isn't responding well to him, and then he has a meeting with the assistant principal, that this is not a time for mumbling. And it is absolutely understandable that you are angry. And I get it that you might be in a very racist situation, but you got to be able to advocate for yourself in this situation, be taken seriously, because if you don't, then you're not doing service to yourself, and you're falling into the very stereotype that is confining you. So you've got to be able to break it. And the way you break it, I believe, is that you own it. Of like, yeah, like these kids get defined as being defiant when they're just lots of times just trying to articulate what they want. But because they live in a racist world, people often think that young Black men are being disrespectful or defiant when in fact are just articulating themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to be able to talk about this, because to me, and I said in the very beginning that like I can laugh about this stuff. Like I can laugh at my students that you've got to stop mumbling. Like if you mumble again, I'm seriously, like, I cannot handle the mumbling. Like I can laugh at him with that, with him. But the issue of him being taken seriously, I will never laugh at, because it is absolutely critically important that a young Black man is listened to.
Mm-hmm. As is the young woman in the corporate environment.
Sure, of course.
It's the exact same thing.
Right.
This is wonderful. I want to ask you about your black belt.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And this is a Korean form. It's
yeah, that's what I learned. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit, because again, and you were teaching all these women self-defense as well. So you have a smaller power going against some other larger force. How are you able to use leverage to actually?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, I hadn't thought of it like that.
Only because you look at jujitsu and it's it's taking the force and actually shifting yourself away from it and letting it. Mm-hmm. And here you are, a small petite woman, probably able to take down the biggest, largest men.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I really felt that it was actually, when I was doing it, that it was that I felt so strongly about the process of women going through and experiencing their ability to take care of themselves physically. Because even if you grew up in a really feminist household like I did, you still believe that the truisms of women having to depend on men for physical safety is still true, right? It's in your, it's your wire, it's like you've been taught that for so long. And so when you claim that power, I think it really transforms, and y'all use the word leverage, it leverages your ability to see your power in other ways. So, and I think that it's also natural to go through the process, I certainly did, of learning martial arts and feeling that power and overcompensating, or it's such a powerful drug that you feel this confidence that you can, it sort of takes over a little bit. And as I tell my sons this, the best martial artists don't talk about it. The people who run their mouths about it, I never think are going to be very good. So it just becomes part of who you are, and it's a part of your very intrinsic, fundamental sort of personal power and confidence. But it's not something that you feel like you have to prove all the time, because there's no reason to, because it's a part of your identity and it's integrated into yourself, into who you are. And so as far as leveraging that, I mean, I think as a woman in a business setting, or I just had an experience like this last week, that I think that I don't want to speak for other women's experiences, but I think that I might have a different experience when I experience sexism and when I experience being disrespected as a woman, which I did last week in a business setting. It doesn't have this tinge of, it bothers me, but I feel much more comfortable being able to speak my truth and being able to be calm and authoritative in that situation. I don't catch myself. I don't get like upset. I'm just like, oh, well, here I am with this guy who's treating me with total disrespect, simply because I am female. And then you feel that, you're like, the experience of like, wow, this is amazing. This is happening to me. I cannot believe this dude. But you just handle it. And I think you handle it in a way that just, you have more resilience, I think, to it, because you're like, well, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to deal with it head on, and it's not going to scare me. And I think that in some ways that kind of disrespect and denigration from a man to a woman oftentimes has that tinge of like physical disrespect. And when you can take care of yourself physically, it just doesn't, you're like, whatever, I don't care.
Such an incredible gift that you gave to these women. And I feel like you're so lucky that you get to have that, because that belief is absolutely prevalent. I'm probably a strong, athletic woman. I have that belief all the time. And I think it's partly because I don't have formal training in, being able to defend myself. And so I automatically default to somebody else is stronger, could protect me more. And because body awareness, because it's cellular, I totally hear you that you now embody it. To be able to have a power that's physical is completely different than challenging. Like, so I can only imagine what that brings to the table, and how few of us women actually get to experience that. So that's pretty incredible.
It is pretty cool. I love it. I wish more people would have it, and it actually makes you calmer, right? It makes the irony is it makes you calmer. Like, again, I just happen to have had this experience last week, and I haven't had it in a while. And so it's fresh in my mind of you just get very calm, and you get very like, this is what I need. This is what I want. I have a pretty easy time telling my truth to people in that situation. In this situation, it was, wow, you've really disappointed me. This was a huge opportunity that we no longer will be having because, and you don't feel like, of course, as a woman who's worked with a lot of women, and I'm sure you do this as well, I hate when women speak with their inflection going up at the end of their sentences.
I catch myself all the time doing it. I hate it.
Like,
but I do it all the time.
To speak. I mean, it's just absurd. So, I mean, I is like, or weak handshakes, or not being able to like just hold your own and have presence in a room, business wise, or being like the micromanaging woman who's going to take care of everything perfectly. There's all sorts of like iterations of this that, I want women to be able to claim their power and their authentic power. I want them claiming it authentically.
Absolutely. Okay. One last question. And this part is all about what we can do for you. So the idea is that this is interactive and engaging. I know you have this focus now on boys, and you have a book that's come out that is being given as a free download. There's probably a million things that we could be doing with that and engaging afterward. So if there's something in particular that you need support with, or that we can help you with, what would that be?
Well, I mean, I am going on a campaign about the mom saying, stop saying, he hits you, so he likes you. So that's a campaign. I'm going to be writing about that. I'll probably get hate mail about that. I mean, the Masterminds book, the boys book, is for parents of boys and girls. And it comes out in paperback on the 29th of July. So that's important to me. And I'm really trying to shift the conversation that we have about boys in some of the ways I tried to shift the conversation we had about girls. And I just think the stakes are so, so incredibly high for all of us. So, there's that about helping me get the word out about the paperback, and there's a free reader's guide for people. And, that's important to me. But it's also important to me, and you mentioned, we have this high school book that's a free ebook called The Guide, Managing Douchebags, Recruiting Wingmen.
Wait. Can you say the title again? Because I love it.
Title of the high school book, which is a complement to Masterminds, is called The Guide, Managing Douchebags, Recruiting Wingmen, and Attracting Who You Want. And and it's also available as like an actual book too, that you can get like off Amazon, like as a printed book. And I would love for boys to get this book. I mean, it's really important to me. I mean, it's, I don't care if it's free or if you pay for it as a regular book, but boys really need help, and they won't ask for it, and they won't ask for it for very good reasons, actually. So, my request is to really help about trying to help me shift the conversation that we have about boys. And the boys want it. That's the most important thing, is the boys want it.
And that last piece, I just want you to speak to that a bit more, because it sounds like, yes, boys need it, and they're probably unwilling to speak about it. And yet I've heard you talk about like some of these boys who have no problem making their stuff known, or at least like asking for support. So there is a willingness there to have that conversation, interactive piece.
Definitely. It's just that, just like every person, if you I want people to think about the things we say about boys, that they're only, they're hormone crazed, they're stupid, that they, can't think, they're always thinking with their other head. I mean, we just are constantly denigrating boys, or we are sort of reinforcing the parts of them that, in some ways are the most problematic, like the social status they get from certain sports in the country. So, what my experience with this is that boys really do want to talk. We just have to stop. What's so ironic to me is that a lot of mothers in particular will complain about boys not wanting to talk to them, right? You say, well, how was your day? And they say, it's fine. And they don't want to talk about anything more than that. The experience with boys, I'm 110% sure about, is that if we actually stopped asking them so many questions, and we just listened to them and said, you know what, I realize that I've been asking you a lot of questions, and I realize how annoying that could be. I want to know what's going on in your life, and I'll be here when you're ready. And actually give patience, like be patient, because I bet someone's going to say, like, yeah, my 15-year-old's never going to talk to me. it's amazing to me when we stop harassing boys and stop stereotyping them and stop giving them telling them sound bites, how much they will talk to us. And that's just been my consistent experience, is if we actually stop sound biting and stereotyping them, they will more than come forward and talk to us.
I love it. I love it. I think that also applies to husbands at the end of the day as
well. Absolutely.
Just tell your husbands, let them know. Okay, so tell me, where is it that we can get the book? It's Amazon. Tell us like the different places.
Get the book. So my books are available, pretty much at any bookstore, or any, whatever, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all those kinds of things. They're all available in Kindle and Nook and all those kind of stuff. But you can also go to my website and you can get everything there. You can get the the free reader's guide for Masterminds on my website. It's just my name. It's rosalindwiseman.com, and it's right front and center, and you can find it.
Okay. And is there a place on your site as well if people are just floored with what you're doing and want to bring you into their schools or their school system?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you do that, then yes, that's just I have a speaking bureau that I go through, and that's
okay.
So Great. It's also very easy to find.
I love it. Well, is there anything else? This was fantastic. I'm so thankful that you were available today.
Absolutely, of course.
And I look forward to our next time together.
Okay, cool. I'll be here.
Potentially for tomorrow. Excellent.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much. I'm gonna stop recording and say hi to you on the other side. Bye.
Okay, bye.